My sister Chelsea Harper left a board meeting the second she saw her husband had secretly transferred $3.1 million to his mistress. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood up, said family emergency, and walked out, while 23 executives stared at an empty chair on Zoom. 3 days later, he was blowing up my phone, begging to know where she went. I sent him one photo, Chelsea, on the 72nd floor in St. Louis, the Gateway Arch, glowing behind her like she'd already moved on to a different life. Here's exactly how it happened. Thursday night, 7:48 p.m. I was in my apartment in Seattle finishing a forensic report when my headphones on lo-fi playing low. My phone lit up with a FaceTime call from Chelsea Harper, my 36-year-old sister, the woman who never calls unless it's life or death. She didn't say hello. She just flipped her laptop around so I could see the screen. A bank alert, outgoing wire, $3,100,000. 00. Beneficiary Addison Hart, 7:46 p.m. Behind her, the Zoom grid was still live, all the partners still talking, her camera still on. Chelsea whispered, "Ryder, I have to go right now." Muted herself, stood up and said out loud, "I'm sorry, everyone, I have a family emergency." Then she walked off camera. The frame stayed on her empty leather chair for a solid 5 seconds while the room went silent. I watched her grab the carry-on that was already open in the corner of her home office, already packed, like she'd been ready for this moment longer than any of us knew. She ordered an Uber to John Glenn Columbus International. By 11:30 p.m., she was checking in for the last flight of the night to St. Louis, boarding at 1:10 a.m. Before airplane mode, she sent me one single message: safe. Tell no one, not even Caleb. 3 days later, Caleb was calling me 17 times in a row, voice cracking, demanding to know where my sister disappeared to. I didn't answer. I just sent him the picture Chelsea had taken from the rooftop of One Metropolitan Square, downtown St. Louis, lights behind her Gateway Arch, lit up like a crown. No caption, no explanation. He finally understood she wasn't coming back. If you're still here with me, drop listening in the comments or tell me what city you're watching from. I read every single one. And if you want to know how a man lost everything he thought he owned in less than a week, hit subscribe because this story is just getting started. I booked the earliest flight out of Seattle and touched down in Columbus just before 10 Friday morning. The house in Dublin was quiet, the way only empty multi-million-dollar homes can be. I punched in the spare code Chelsea gave me years ago and stepped inside. The air still carried yesterday's stale coffee and the faint ghost of Caleb's red wine on the kitchen island, one glass half-full lipstick smudge on the rim that definitely wasn't my sister's shade. I went straight to her office on the second floor. The MacBook Pro was exactly where she always left it, lid, half-closed, charging cable coiled like nothing had happened. Face ID recognized me on the first try, no password needed, because Chelsea had added me as a trusted face the day she bought it. The desktop loaded and the banking app was already open in the background, like she wanted me to see everything the moment I sat down. 16 months of transactions stared back at me. Wire after wire, chunk after chunk, $9.4 million total, every single transfer signed with a forged digital certificate that carried Chelsea's name. The earliest one dated back to the week Caleb told her he'd taken care of their future. I clicked the details. Routing numbers led to a trust account's offshore entities, and finally landed in one name I'd never heard before: Addison Hart. I opened the iCloud backup tab she'd shared with me for emergencies. The messages loaded instantly. Caleb's thread with Addison was pinned at the top. "Tonight, Caleb last tranche is moving tonight. After this, we're completely free. Addison, can't wait to start spending it with you, Caleb. She'll never notice until it's too late. Too busy being CFO of the year." I felt my stomach drop, not from shock anymore, but from the cold kind of anger that makes your hands steady instead of shaky. I scrolled higher. Photos of them on a yacht in Miami. Caleb's arm around her waist, time-stamped the same weekend Chelsea flew to New York for a conference and came home early because he'd begged her to. Hotel receipts from the Ritz-Carlton Naples charged to the joint Amex, the same card Chelsea paid off every month without looking. Then I found the two emails that hurt the worst. First, an offer letter from the St. Louis headquarters dated 18 months ago. Managing partner track 8-figure bonus structure, personal signing bonus of $2.5 million, the kind of role that rewrites careers. Chelsea had forwarded it to Caleb with the subject, "What do you think?" His reply, one line: "We're finally stable here. Family needs you in Ohio more than some title needs you in Missouri." Second email, same offer resent 6 months later. Same one-line reply from him. "Don't be selfish. Think about what people will say if you move us again." She had declined both times. I sat back in her chair, the same one she'd used for every late-night call, every investor deck, every time she carried this family financially, while Caleb played independent trader from the guest bedroom. My fingers moved on autopilot. Screenshots encrypted folder uploaded to a private drive shared link only with her and with me. Every file named by date and amount so no judge could ever say it was fabricated. The front door camera pinged on the monitor. Motion detected in the driveway, but no car yet. I closed the laptop, heart rate completely normal now because the moment Chelsea walked out of that Zoom call, the game had already changed. Caleb just didn't know he'd lost it yet. The garage door rumbled open Friday evening, and Caleb strolled in wearing the same white polo he'd had on in every Palm Beach story I'd just watched. He spotted me in the hallway, grinned like we were old college buddies, and slapped my shoulder hard enough to sting. "Ryder, my man, what brings you to town?" Then, without pausing for an answer, Chelsea around, I shrugged. He smelled like coconut sunscreen and that cloying floral perfume Addison always drowned herself in. He kicked off his loafers, dropped his overnight bag by the stairs, and headed straight for the bar cart. Ice clinked. Whiskey poured. 2 fingers became 4. He flopped onto the leather sofa, phone already in hand, scrolling. "Check this out," he said, turning the screen toward me. Instagram story, still live him, with his arm locked around Addison's waist on the 18th green, both of them sunburned, and laughing caption in bold white letters, "Living my best life." He refreshed the app, watched the views climb past 3,000, and smirked. "Your sister's always buried in spreadsheets." I needed air. He took a long swallow. Needed someone who actually knows how to have fun. I stayed standing, hands in my pockets, phone recording silently through the fabric. Caleb leaned back, stretched his arms across the back of the couch like he owned the world. "Look, bro, I'm gonna be straight with you. Chelsea works like a damn robot. Board meetings, pitch decks, red-eye flights. When's the last time she even looked at me without a screen in her face?" He laughed short and sharp. "I need a woman who takes care of her man, you know. Someone warm. Someone who makes me feel alive." He drained the glass, poured another. "If Chelsea can't handle me having a little freedom, she can file the papers. I'm not hurting for cash." He actually winked. "By Monday, everything will be cleaned up anyway." I felt my jaw tighten but kept my voice flat. Cleaned up how he waved the phone like it was a winning lottery ticket. Final 1.8 hits Addison's account this weekend. After that, the trusts are locked, the paperwork's signed, and I'm untouchable. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes glassy with whiskey and confidence. "Your sister's too busy climbing the corporate ladder to notice a few missing rungs underneath her." He checked the time. Actually, the wire's probably already processing. "Want to see?" He held the phone out again. Banking app open? Scheduled transfer 1-800 Fatschrosorn. Sunday 2:00 a.m. Beneficiary Addison Hart. I didn't take the phone. He shrugged, locked the screen, and tossed it onto the coffee table. "Relax, Ryder. It's just money. She makes more in a quarter than most people see in 10 years. She'll be fine." He stood up stretched and clapped my shoulder again on his way to the stairs. Tell Chelsea I'm hitting the shower. And hey, thanks for swinging by. Always good to see family. His footsteps disappeared upstairs. Water started running. I stood in the living room a long time listening to him sing off-key over the noise of the shower, the same careless victory song he'd been humming for months. I never said a word. 4:07 a.m. Saturday, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. One new message from Chelsea, a selfie taken against floor-to-ceiling glass, the gateway arch glowing silver in the pre-dawn single word underneath safe. I stared at it for a long time, then locked the screen and went back to sleep. Downstairs, Caleb didn't surface until almost 10. He wandered into the kitchen in boxers and yesterday's polo, scratching his stomach, squinting at the empty coffee pot like it had personally betrayed him. He finally noticed the silence. Ryder, Chelsea up yet? I was at the island eating cereal. I shook my head. He grabbed his phone, thumbs flying. Message sent 10:03 a.m. Weekend plans, babe, I'm home early. No typing indicator. 10 minutes later, he tried again, added 3 kissing emojis. Still nothing. By 11, he was pacing the living room, refreshing iMessage every 30 seconds. The reply finally came, not words, just a photo. Chelsea in the same penthouse daylight, now standing at the window 72 floors above St. Louis, the entire skyline spread out behind her like she owned it. No text, no emoji, nothing. Caleb's face changed in slow motion. The cocky grin slid off, replaced by something between confusion and panic. He hit call. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Then he started on me. My phone lit up nonstop. 10 missed calls. Text. Where the hell is she? Answer your damn phone. Is Chelsea with you? This isn't funny. Ryder, tell her to call me right now. I let it ring out every time. I finally typed one line. She needs space. He fired back instantly. Space. From what I just got home. Then she's really doing this. Then tell her I'm sorry. Okay, whatever I did, I'll fix it. I didn't reply. He kept going. Voice notes now. Voice cracking background noise of him walking circles in the foyer. Bro, you gotta help me out here. She can't just disappear. I love her, man. You know that. I stayed in the kitchen, volume off, watching the little waveform icons pile up like evidence. By 2 p.m., he was upstairs throwing clothes into a different bag, booking the next flight to St. Louis on speaker, credit card details shouted into the phone. He came down, red-eyed, hair still wet from a second shower, trying to look calm. I'm gonna go get my wife. He told me like I was supposed to clap him on the back. I nodded once. He waited for more. I gave him nothing. He grabbed his keys, hesitated at the door. You coming? No? He left anyway. The house went dead quiet again. I sat there until sunset, phone still blowing up every new message, more desperate than the last, watching the man who thought he had everything realize way too late that he was already holding nothing. Monday morning, Wyatt Lang called me from the main office in Columbus. Wyatt is head of risk management, the guy who can smell fraud from 3 states away. We went to grad school together. Chelsea brought him into the firm 8 years ago, and he's been protecting her back ever since. He didn't waste time on greetings. Ryder, I got an anonymous tip Friday night. $9.4 million in irregular wires over 16 months, all signed with Chelsea's digital cert. I ran the hashes this morning. Every single signature is forged. He kept talking, calm and surgical. Metadata shows the certificates were generated on a laptop that's never been issued by IT. MAC address traces back to the guest bedroom Wi-Fi, the one Caleb uses for his trading. I've already frozen the accounts tied to the beneficiary and opened a full internal investigation. Caleb has been summoned downtown. Now. I could hear elevator music in his background, then the ding of the 23rd floor. He just walked in, Wyatt said, voice dropping. Security took his phone at reception. He's not leaving until we have answers. I stayed on the line, listening to muffled voices through his AirPods. Wyatt put me on mute for minutes at a time while he walked Caleb through the conference room door. When he came back, his tone was ice. He's sweating bullets. Keep saying it's a misunderstanding. I told him misunderstanding doesn't forge a CFO's private key. Across the country the same morning, a certified letter from the IRS landed at Addison Hart's condo in West Palm Beach. Subject line: request for explanation, untaxed gifts, exceeding $94,000. Inside, a 45-day notice to produce source of funds documentation or face audit penalties and possible criminal referral. She called Caleb 17 times in 20 minutes. He couldn't answer. His phone was locked in Wyatt's drawer. By 3 p.m., Wyatt texted me a single update 5 hours in. He finally admitted the signatures were his. Claims it was joint planning. I reminded him joint planning doesn't involve hiding 9 figures from your wife. Legal is drafting the termination package now. At 4:58 p.m., Caleb was escorted out of the building with a cardboard box and a non-disclosure agreement thicker than a phone book. He went straight to Port Columbus, hair uncombed, tie loose, and bought the last first-class seat on the 6:40 p.m. to St. Louis. He still believed flowers, tears, and the right words would bring Chelsea home. He texted me from the gate, thumbs shaking so hard the typos piled up. Heading to STL tonight. I'll fix this. Tell her I'm coming. I read it, closed the message, and turned my phone face down. Chelsea already knew he was on the way. She always knows. I caught the last flight Tuesday night and landed in St. Louis just after 10. Chelsea met me in the private lobby of One Metropolitan Square. She was already wearing the new title like it had always belonged to her managing partner, signed that afternoon with Judith Coleman, the firm's legendary chairwoman. Every personal asset she owned had been moved into an irrevocable trust hours earlier, untouchable, ironclad, final. She looked lighter than I'd ever seen her. We took the executive elevator to the penthouse level. The doors had barely closed when her phone exploded. Caleb. 37 missed calls since touchdown. She silenced it without looking. At 7:02 p.m., the lobby security feed pinged her watch. Caleb had arrived. I rode back down with her. We stepped out onto the marble floor just as he burst through the revolving door, shirt untucked, eyes wild, carrying a pathetic bouquet of roses already wilting in the heat. He saw her and dropped straight to his knees in the middle of the atrium, roses scattering across the stone. Late-day employees froze mid-step. Phones came out. Chelsea, baby, please. She stopped 10 feet away. I stayed half a step behind her left shoulder. He crawled forward on his knees, voice cracking. I messed up. I know I messed up. I'll give it all back. I'll fix everything. Just come home. Chelsea's phone rang again, this time on speaker volume loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. Addison's voice shrill and panicked. Caleb. You used me as a damn straw owner, and now the IRS is at my door. They froze everything. You told me it was legal. Caleb's face went white. He tried to grab the phone, but Chelsea held it higher. Addison kept screaming. You said she'd never leave. You said we just had to wait. Security started moving in. Caleb waved them off, tears streaming now. Chelsea. I love you. I only love you. She means nothing. Chelsea looked down at him the way you look at a stranger who once borrowed your name. You didn't lose me, Caleb. Her voice was quiet, steady, final. You lost the right to own me. She turned, pressed the elevator button. The doors opened instantly. She stepped inside. I followed. Caleb lunged, but 2 guards caught his arms. He screamed her name all the way up 72 floors, voice echoing off glass and steel until the doors closed and cut him off completely. The elevator rose in silence. Chelsea watched the numbers climb, hands relaxed at her sides. When we reached the top, she finally exhaled. It's done, she said. I nodded. For the first time in years, I believed her. 2 months later, I sat in the federal courtroom in downtown Columbus. The charges were read in flat legal language that somehow made them sound worse. Count 1, securities fraud. Count 2, forgery of electronic signature. Count 3, conspiracy to commit tax evasion. Caleb stood at the defense table in a cheap suit, 2 sizes too big. Hair cut short like a prison barber had already started the job. He didn't look at the gallery once. The judge didn't blink when she delivered the sentence. Civil penalty $8.9 million joint and several. Full restitution of the $9.4 million plus compounded interest. Permanent bar from any securities-related activity for 12 years. 5 years of federal financial monitoring. Every bank account, every credit card, every Venmo transaction reported monthly to a probation officer. He was let out in cuffs before the gavel even cooled. That same week, Addison Hart crossed the border at Niagara Falls with 1 suitcase and a burner phone. Canadian Customs flagged the IRS warrant the moment her passport scanned. She's been in custody in Toronto ever since fighting extradition over the gift tax that somehow grew into felony tax fraud once the prosecutors added up the zeros. 3 days after sentencing, a long voice message appeared from a number I almost deleted. Sloane Morrison, Caleb's younger sister, the only one in that family who ever treated Chelsea like a human being. Her voice was small, shaky, nothing like the confident girl who used to crash our holidays. Ryder. I don't even know how to start. I just left the house, and I'm never going back. Mom keeps saying Chelsea ruined Caleb's life. Dad won't speak his name. They act like he's the victim. She took a ragged breath. I read the court filings. I saw the signatures, the messages, everything. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm ashamed I shared DNA with him. A long pause, traffic noise in the background. Caleb lost his license, his reputation, his freedom, and somehow they still blame your sister. I can't live in that house anymore. I'm moving to Denver next week. New name on the mailbox, new phone, everything. Another pause. Tell Chelsea. Tell her thank you for being stronger than all of us. And tell her I'm sorry for every Thanksgiving I sat silent while they talked down to her. The message ended. I saved it then, forwarded it to Chelsea without comment. She listened once, closed the phone, and never mentioned it again. Justice didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like the quiet that had been strangling the air for years finally loosened, slow and permanent. 4 months after the sentencing, I flew down to St. Louis for the first time since everything ended. Chelsea met me at the private elevator. The new penthouse sat on the top floor of a different tower higher than the last, windows facing west over the Mississippi. The place smelled like fresh paint and new furniture. Not a single trace of Caleb remained, no forgotten watch on the counter. No monogrammed towel in the bathroom. No framed photo tucked in a drawer. It was as if the past 8 years had been professionally erased. We ordered Thai and carried it out to the balcony. The river rolled slow and wide below us, barges sliding past like quiet secrets. Chelsea leaned on the railing in jeans and an old Wharton hoodie, hair longer, now eyes clear. She spoke first. I used to think winning meant watching him lose everything. She took a sip of wine, watching the sun drop behind the Illinois shore. Turns out I don't need him to lose for me to win. I just needed him to stop being the one who decided my price. She turned to me, voice soft but certain. I'm the second youngest partner this firm has ever had. I close 9-figure deals before breakfast. I sleep through the night for the first time in a decade. And none of it tastes like revenge. It just tastes like freedom. I asked the question I'd carried for months. Do you ever miss him? She laughed short, real surprised by the question. I miss the idea I had of him. I don't miss the man who actually showed up. The city lights started flickering on one by one until the whole riverfront glowed. She raised her glass toward the view. To knowing your worth, she said. We clinked plastic cups of cheap wine like it was champagne. Later, walking through the airport to head home, I thought about every person still stuck measuring themselves by someone else's ruler. So here's the only thing I want you to take from this story. Never let anyone, husband, wife, parent, friend, boss, ever hold the tape measure that decides what you're worth. The moment you know your own value, no one gets to discount you again. Chelsea proved it. And if she can walk away from $9.4 million lighter and still end up richer than she's ever been, so can you. Thanks for listening all the way to the end.